Bonjour à tous, ravie et très honorée de vous souhaiter la bienvenue en direct depuis le centre de contrôle du CNES, le centre d'aide au développement des activités en micropesanteur et des opérations spatiales du CNES à Toulouse. Dans un peu moins de 2 heures, nous allons vivre ensemble le lancement de la mission Alpha, un deuxième séjour donc à bord de la Station spatiale internationale pour Thomas Pesquet, l'astronaute français de l'ESA, et une première puisque c'est à bord du Crew Dragon, la capsule SpaceX que l'astronaute français
given that it is on board of Crew Dragon, the SpaceX capsule, that Thomas Pesquet and his crew will be propelled to the ISS. We're going to follow this launch, which was postponed 24 hours because of the weather. The mission Alpha today
préparé pour cette deuxième mission dans
did
l'espace?
the astronaut prepare for the second mission in space, and what is going to happen in the next few minutes and in the next 24 hours? This is an exceptional event that we're going to experience today. A lot of emotion, a lot of tension around me, and I imagine it'll be even worse in Cape Canaveral. We're going to join our special correspondent in NASA, and I am delighted to be accompanied by Jean-Pierre Clervoy. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Jean-François, you were saying a few days ago, talking about the second mission of Thomas Pesquet, that in the conquest of space, there is no astronaut who is blasé.
It's such an adventure, technologically and humanly speaking, and it allows us for the planet to ask questions, global questions, and all astronauts like adventure a lot. They sense the exploration, and each mission it's an adventure for exploration. We know that the current missions are preparing those for the future towards the moon and leading us to Mars afterwards. So all the astronauts are very much focused when they live their mission, but they are very much moved when they leave, when they see their colleagues.
And we are going to see the images. We are going to receive experts, scientists, industrialists on this platform. Mission Alpha is a result of an enormous amount of work in which a lot of teams have been involved. This mission is proposed by the CNES in partnership with ESA, the European Space Agency, in French and in English with simultaneous translation. You will be able to follow us on Twitch and Tube stations of NEXT and on ESA team. Jean-François, where is Thomas exactly? And what is he doing at the moment to have the current status? They have been positioned inside the capsule. They are sitting or half-lying.
And the crew is already seated in advance more than an hour before, because prior to the liftoff, because it's a rendezvous in space. So if you are lifted off, we have to reach the ISS station. We have to fire. You have to fire at a very precise moment. We haven't got a margin to delay by 1 hour or two. So we have more margin before than after for the mission. So the crew is already seated, connected, hooked up, and all the technicians are looking at the tightness of the hatch. It's going to take some time, and then they're waiting at this stage, and are very focused even if they are not doing anything.
We can see the launch pad. These photographs were taken early in the morning in Florida. The sky is clear in Florida.
You need to have very good weather around the pad, but also for retrieving, rescuing the crew in the Atlantic if they have to evacuate and eject during the launch.
You were saying that during that phase, the team was installed in the capsule.
The astronauts will equip themselves in orbit. If they can put their suits on, so just like during the simulations, we repeat all the gestures, and then the technicians.
Thomas Pesquet est tout au fond à droite.
Thomas Pesquet is
absolutely, yes.
Right-hand side.
So this is you have Megan, the oceanographer, and then Thomas is at the very end behind the camera. You have the Japanese guy as well.
We can see technicians who come to check the pressurization of the capsule.
Absolutely. Well, the crew is seated, shouldn't be moving, and we're connecting everything. Once it's hooked up, then we make some radio testing, which has already been done actually, and now they check that the hatch is mechanically locked, and then we'll check the tightness as well, because this is the only way of ingressing or regressing the capsule. It has to be quite tight, because in space, of course, this is very important.
Of course, they're not going to stay in that position, sitting.
Well, certainly, yes. Well, they will remain hooked up as long as they haven't reached a certain stage where they can really remove their suits and live on board, because for 24 hours they have to sleep and eat, and they have to
they can even change and move around contained in the capsule? They got a little room.
It's a single volume, but it's sufficiently large for everyone to be able to remove his clothes.
Jean-François, what is the state of mind you have at that moment?
The astronauts have been training for months and are formatting their mind, their mindset, and intellectually speaking to what is going on right now. It's normal for them to do what they are doing now because they've been used to it. They are very focused. You shouldn't remove one step. They are very much excited because this is the day, this is the absolute...
That's what we've been waiting for a long time. Mission Alpha is going to take off very shortly. I suppose I suggest we look at a few pictures.
Leo on the ground. Touchdown confirmed.
Retour sur Terre réussi pour Thomas Pesquet.
Thomas Pesquet est arrivé il y a quelques minutes.
La sensation de flotter, de légèreté, ça me manque. Mais je pense que c'est une reconnaissance pour tout le monde, pas seulement pour moi. Une aventure super collective qui peut se faire que grâce au travail de tous ces gens-là. De voir la Terre de haut et de constater cette fragilité, ça fait beaucoup réfléchir. Merci d'être à bord, de voler avec moi et rendez-vous bientôt depuis l'espace.
Of course, we hear from the CNES in Toulouse, so we remind you what are the objectives of this mission, is to really do some science.
Well, yes, astronauts are operators of robots and all kinds of devices, but 70% of their time they are in charge of fairly complex scientific devices, microscopes and so on, experiences on brain, psychomotricity, and these scientists who publish on the ground. The astronauts are the eyes and hands of these scientists, and the space station is a laboratory, and the first mission of these astronauts is to get all these devices to work for Thomas. About 100 experiments they've been designed over here, and they are controlled from this room.
And those experiments, they are carried out from the ISS, and they can't be carried out from Earth.
Yes, absolutely. This space station is in space in order to study all these phenomena that are revealed by micro weightlessness, or that you can't see on Earth, fluid mechanics and so on. But research now, we look more into, for instance, the way the muscular systems, human physiology works, in order to better understand the behavior of the human body on the long term, because the idea is to move to the moon and then Mars.
So that's the reason why we carry on sending astronauts into space.
Well, yes, it's been inhabited for 20 years now. Tens of thousands of tests and papers were published, but it's a real test bench for international cooperation on the globe's scale. Well, the Chinese are not taking part yet, but we learnt to work together, to support each other, to help each other, even sometimes when geopolitical tensions can occur.
We're going to have a small reminder of the fundamental of this Alpha mission with a few images with purposes reminded by Thomas Pesquet.
ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet from France is about to begin his second long-duration stay on board the ISS. His mission is named Alpha, after Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. Since Thomas' first mission, which ended in the summer of 2017, 3 more ESA astronauts have lived and worked in orbit. His upcoming mission will continue Europe's ongoing habitation of the ISS, but with some radical new developments.
ISS has changed a little bit, but not so much. The science experiments, there's some new ones, and also the same ones that I performed last time are still ongoing because you need more data. So I won't be too surprised. But there's also some big differences. One big difference is obviously how to get there. And I flew with the Russian Soyuz from Baikonur, Kazakhstan, the last time. This time I'm going to launch from Florida, which is completely new for us since the space shuttle retired 10 years ago. So different training, different vehicle. It's like when you're a pilot and you change plane, you change to a completely different plane. You have to relearn everything.
Thomas will travel to the ISS with 3 other astronauts on board the commercial spacecraft SpaceX Crew Dragon. This will be its second operational flight, lifting off from Cape Canaveral on board a Falcon 9 launcher. He'll be the first European to launch from the USA since 2011, when Roberto Vittori from Italy flew on board Space Shuttle Endeavour to deliver the Alpha magnetic spectrometer. Despite his previous experience in orbit, Thomas has had to undergo a long and intense training program for the Alpha mission. Preparations for this flight have been particularly challenging, as they've coincided with restrictions caused by the global COVID-19 pandemic.
We really try to lower the risk. We've reduced our traveling quite a lot, so now everything that we can do remote, just like everybody, we do remote. Everything that's not mandatory, we cancel. And by doing this, we're in good shape to be on time for launch, which is pretty amazing. And I think everybody has done a very impressive job, in spite of the pandemic, still pressing ahead and ticking all the boxes.
Once he's back on board the ISS, Thomas will spend much of his time on scientific research.
And the other thing was,
During his last mission, he took part in over 200 experiments, setting a record for the number of hours spent on science in a week. ESA's Columbus laboratory has been considerably upgraded since his last stay, with faster access to experiments for researchers on Earth. He'll also be carrying out maintenance tasks as part of the station's crew, this time with the benefit of 6 months' experience in orbit.
The second time, it's a bit different. You know exactly what you need to know, what you don't need to know, how to do things, you have an idea. So I think I'm going to enjoy it more, because the first time I was always constantly trying to do work and do things, and I was never ever idle on board the space station. This time I'm going to try to take some time for myself and maybe make some good memories.
Thomas Pesquet's upcoming launch will see him pioneer a new phase in European spaceflight. And as the Alpha mission unfolds, continue ESA's role as an international partner in orbit.
Voilà, nous sommes à un peu plus d'1 heure.
So there's 1 hour to go, counting down. On the other side of the Atlantic, the pressure is mounting, and we're going to join our special correspondent at Cape Canaveral, Dominique Detain. Good morning. How are you? What is the atmosphere this morning?
Well, yes, hello, and welcome to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Well, this is a standard launching operation, so we feel like, when they left for the moon. Now there's a lot of tension, a lot of excitement, and a pinch of apprehension as well. Now, there are a few novelties for this flight. Thomas Pesquet is just behind me over there, 5 kilometers away, and so far, well, everything's fine. We've got good weather conditions, but it's not only here that we need good weather conditions. We also need good weather conditions all along the trajectory, and so we've have the go-ahead so far. And now, in terms of apprehension, this is the very first time that we are reusing a capsule and a launcher. The booster, the first stage, has already been flying, and the capsule also, it's been refurbished also, and we saw it a few months ago in a SpaceX plant. Now, so far everything's good, and by my side, Mike Curie, who's an analyst in the commercial NASA flight program. Mike Curie, what's going on?
Je ne parle pas français, but just wanted to say hello.
Thank you, very kind of you. So what's up? What's the situation?
Everything is going great. Everything has been on the timeline. The flight crew is awakened on time. They ate breakfast. They went out to the launch pad where a crew met them and took them up into the crew access arm, into the white room. They're now inside the spacecraft. The hatch is closed. Everything is going well. They've done communications checks with the crew, and you can hear everyone just fine. That was an important step. The next item is that the crew that helped to put them in the capsule will be departing the launch pad, so the only people there will be the 4 crew members. And at T-minus 45 minutes, the launch director will conduct a poll to verify that they are go for propellant loading.
But everything is okay? I mean, any concern right now?
No, there are no concerns right now. The weather is cooperating both here at the Kennedy Space Center, Launch Pad 39A, as well as the entire flight path up the east coast of America and out over the North Atlantic. Everything is going great.
Okay, so Mike, we will see you later on. So, à vous, Sophie, thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Dominique.
Thank you, Dominique. We're going to see you again in a few minutes. What is Thomas Pesquet going to do during his mission? And what is science expecting from astronauts from the ISS? I have from CNES, Sébastien Rouquet to explain all this. You are a flight engineer here in Toulouse and for the mission Alpha, and you are part of a mission which created all the scientific experiments. What is the scientific community, what is expecting from those experiments? Tell us, please.
Scientists use astronauts. I mean, an astronaut is an operator, basically, in space. And they're used for very interesting experiments. So this is basically how we'll be using Thomas during this 6 month period in space.
So what is Thomas going to do?
Well, his time will be shared between many activities. They have a very busy schedule, astronauts, as they wake up at 6:30 all the way until 9:30, more or less. Start with the briefing, chore distribution, breakfast, and so on. And then 40 to 50% of time is spent on scientific handling, and the rest is for maintenance. A little bit of sport, 2 hours of physical exercise to keep fit, and that's basically the program. On the scientific side, well, many experiments will have to be carried out.
So we come back to those experiments in detail later. What are the activities of those different experiments?
Well, it's a bit short to be able to expand on all these experiments carried out on board, but basically we look into issues that are material science, life science, physiology, neurology, for instance, technology, of course, because we prepare also exploration flights for the future towards the moon or Mars, although this is not necessarily part of what we call the line, it's not the lion's share of experiments, but we have this vision to prepare exploration of the future.
Thank you, Sebastian. You stay with us because we are going to talk to you again later. CNES and ESA have an educational policy that is very strong towards young people. In order to have vocation, we're going to propose an operation that is a cooperation between CNES and ESA. We're going to discover different educational projects. Next video is a focus on parabolic flights. Let's have a look at that.
Et le vol parabolique, c'est un peu votre bébé, Jean-François.
Oui, avec un collègue, il y a plus de 30 ans, on a créé cette première activité en Europe.
We did this first activity in Europe to have the aircraft on a terrestrial orbit, so making us believe that we are in the vacuum for 20 seconds. And for all phenomena where the mechanism lasts less than 20 seconds, then you can make research in the same disciplines as the ISS. So CNES and the ESA and the German Space Lab are also very interested in this. So that the scientist can do his own manipulations on research, unlike in the ISS, where you have to delegate the work to the astronaut. And this is on behalf of the industry, of course.
This is only a short sample of the range of educational projects set up by CNES to be discovered on the CNES website. We're going to see 4 films lasting 15 seconds each, and we will compile them into one and show it at the end of the broadcast. Let's go back to the work done by NASA. We'll listen to an interview of Frank Devine, spaceman of the European Space Agency, a first European astronaut. He was interviewed a few days ago. Let us listen to him.
Here, this is the Kennedy Space Center. Thomas is going to leave with the Crew Dragon, or with the launcher, which is behind me. This is a very important step for the European Space Agency, the first astronaut to fly on a commercial vehicle, an American vehicle. So we've been working for the last 2 years with our colleagues from NASA and to make sure that this flight would be taking place in very good conditions. So it's the first concern that we had. So then we had a demonstrator flight with all the NASA SpaceX teams. We checked everything, whatever is pertinent for this flight and the risks that still exist, because if you fly, you have some risks. And then we decided that we were ready to launch Thomas on this vehicle. So it's excellent the way we've been working with the NASA teams and with the SpaceX team in order to understand everything, because it's not only the first flight for a European astronaut on Crew Dragon, but it's also a vehicle to be which is reused for the first time and which is going to be used to launch astronauts in space. So I'd like to congratulate all our NASA colleagues and the SpaceX teams for all the information that they provided, and we are very confident that we'll be able to leave with this particular vehicle.
Obviously, there's not only Thomas, there's 4 of them. Jean-François, what is the role of the crew members of Alpha mission on board of Crew Dragon in the ISS?
Crew Dragon is a transport vehicle which, on top of doing transportation and return, it's also an evacuation spaceship to come back in emergency towards the ground in a few hours if we had to abandon the ISS station. And it's also revolutionary as a vehicle, because we are trusting the computers a lot. There's not so much human involvement in the failure management. It's very autonomous, and the crew is supervised by the SpaceX teams on the ground, and the crew hasn't got so many scenarios where he would have to intervene in an emergency, but they can also evacuate themselves if they wanted to, if there's any major anomaly during the liftoff due to the launcher or to a trajectory anomaly where it deviates and goes towards the eastern coast of the States, and then there would be an evacuation and ejection. And
that is important. We're talking about automation, better automation.
Well, I had a friend who's a flight commander for the second private mission to take place next year with tourists on board, saying that I have just to read a book during the launch, because the information are displayed on the tactile screens, and they have the possibility of launching a few commands. But then, even in case of a failure, they don't have to intervene.
There are 2 Americans, Megan MacArthur and Shane Kimbrough, pilot and commander, respectively. We are going to see them on the screen. Akihiko Shibe, the Japanese mission specialist, and our national hero, Thomas Pesquet, is a mission specialist. mission specialists at the beginning of the mission.
Well, you're right, because when an astronaut is considered to be sufficiently capable and efficient in its trade, we are trying to give him the possibility of assuming the function of flight commander. So Shane King-Crow was also commander of the Crew Dragons. Usually you do not assume both posts simultaneously for the transport and the station. So is the Japanese the most experienced, who's going to be the flight commander, and then Thomas will be such at the end, and then Megan later on for the next mission. But she's
the only one out of the 4 crew members who hasn't been to the ISS
Shane
yet.
Has been flying on the shuttle and on the ISS, and so Akihiko Oshide has got 2 flights, one with the shuttle, one with the station, and Thomas has got 1 long-duration flight. So this is an extremely experienced crew. They have had 1 flight in space, and Megan is the only one not to have experienced the ISS.
And they know one another very well, the 4 of them.
Yes, it's a crew which is extremely compatible, if I may say, because Thomas flew with Shane, and they've been training for more than a year and a half, so they know each other very well, and they get on along very well.
One last question. What does it change to be a commander on the ISS or not?
Well, you observe the crew working, and you cannot say who is the flight commander. But then in case of an emergency requiring some major actions straight away, it's the commander who's going to make the distribute the roles. Authority in a space mission is due to the ground manager, but then the flight commander has got, with delegation, in case of a loss of communication, or if you cannot.
We have a few questions that have been sent to us. Thank you for following us. Now, the timetable of the astronauts, are they calculated on a 24-hour day? And what is the impact of their metabolism?
Well, in the ISS, we have a universal Greenwich time. It's 2 hours less than Paris time, with 8 hours sleep per day, with a 24-hour day.
There's a lot of impacts on
long duration. There are changes in the muscular system and urinary, digestive, cardiovascular, vestibular, visual, and so we become like an extraterrestrial being.
We are going to see straight away what the role of our astronaut Thomas Pesquet will be and how he prepared himself for this.
We have a dedicated priority order. First comes the crew, then the vehicle, then the mission. So pragmatically, for the crew training, we have to keep the crew safe and to keep the crew alive. So to keep the crew safe, Thomas had to undergo training for safety for emergency situations like fire or depressurization. And also being alive means how to live on board the ISS, so eating, sleeping, and hygiene procedures. For the vehicle, we have 2 different vehicles, the vehicle to go and to return from the ISS with SpaceX, and ISS is itself a vehicle. Therefore, there is a lot of training on the piloting of the vehicle, both of them, and also the systems that are on board, both of them. So that's a long process of training. And finally, the mission. The mission is really the work content, the experimental content that the crew will have to perform during the mission. This is the last phase of the training and usually the most intense, and I hope the most interesting as well.
Voilà, nous sommes toujours en live au CNES, au CNES
We are still
de Toulouse pour
live
assister
in
au
CNES
lancement
in
de la
Toulouse to see the liftoff of Mission Alpha. We are 50 minutes away from the launch. Pressure continues to rise. It must be very strong on the 4 crew members. It's good to remember that they arrived in Florida a few days ago to prepare themselves, to concentrate, to focus, and we're going to see this in image, and perhaps you can comment on this. We are going to see when they arrive. They are just arriving.
Very important moment when the crew is arriving and they do a flyby, so they go around the launch pad. So they land on this mythic Cape Canaveral complex where you had so many different missions before.
These are the 4 crew members getting off the plane. Thomas is the tallest.
Relative to Akito. Well, it's the opportunity to say a few words.
Who is welcoming them? Is it Frank de Win?
Is standing behind him is the head of the ISS at ESA, head of the astronauts and the first flight commander, which was not who was not Russian or American on board the ISS.
They're going to have a press conference now, and we're going to listen to Thomas answering the questions of the journalists.
At the time of the shuttle, it was T-38. Thomas, could you give us your mood, starting from this historic moment? I think first that this is a magic moment because in this place, because for the last 10 years I've been an astronaut and I've been one of the youngest for the ESA, but of course there's a selection coming this year. But I'm a veteran still, but I never came here actually, and I'm just discovering everything, so it's extremely enthusiastic, enthralling for me, and it's really great for me to be there. I'm just like a kid discovering all the facilities and looking at all the programs that took place before and that continue, which have marked me for all these years when there was no departure from here.
So that was a press conference on the landing on the tarmac.
So 3 targets we want to isolate from infectious risk, relax, and we must repeat exactly the same routine as on takeoff day, except that we don't ignite the motors. So that's the idea of this quarantine, and this is the second time now that they are
so they left with their Teslas. So it's very interesting, Jean-François, because in Russia you're not allowed to check and to go to the launch pad. They say it's unlucky.
Yes, every agency has its own ritual, I may say, but to go and see the spaceship, spacecraft that you love, that will protect you. You love this ship, and you want to go and see it. So this is the crew. So this was not. This was the previous.
So that's a rehearsal day. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, rehearsal day visit. They're in pretty good shape.
They are very relaxed, very concentrated, but very relaxed. This is Thomas in a Tesla. This rehearsal, when did it happen? About one day?
It was 4 or 5 days ago.
Transition now, we go to the technical phase that is starting less than 45 minutes from launching. We are the SpaceX launch director. Announcement. Go for loading propellant. Explain to us, please.
Well, in this countdown, there are many key steps, and they must all be successfully completed before you move on to the next step. And one of the critical phases is fueling. And fueling, it's quite unusual with this launcher. It is carried out after the crew settles and is harnessed, because normally the crew comes and everything has been fueled up. So many checks must be carried out before you authorize fueling, because these are very dangerous to handle products.
So there are many operations, even 45 minutes.
Well, as long as the crew has access to the gateway, to the arm to evacuate, we don't fuel up. But we can prepare putting things under pressure, closing valves. Certain operations can be carried out, but once the arm is retrieved, they will have another way to escape, if I may say, as they eject the capsule.
And as you were saying earlier, Jean-François, the crew doesn't have anything to man.
Well, the crew just listens and follows what's happening, keep a close eye on countdown, and they are always kept abreast of what's happening. It's very important to be aware of the situation of the
So they have they can listen to what's happening in the capsule?
Well, they have yes, 2 headsets, microphone, and they can talk. In fact, there's an intercom basically, and as they press a button, they can talk to the control center, and of course they are constantly listening to what's being said by the team.
So what do they say to one another?
Well, that's a sterile cockpit. As you're close to liftoff, you only say what you have to say. No jokes. You remain focused, ready to listen to the least.
Yes, you don't make jokes at that stage. Okay, we go and find again our special correspondent at Kennedy Space Center, Dominique Detain. Can you hear me? Are you with us? Yes, I can see you.
Dans le vent de la Floride.
With the Florida wind.
Oui, Sophie, eh bien, écoutez, ici.
Yes, Sophie. Well, yes, Sophie. Everything's nominal, as we like to say over here. So everything's on track, on time, as it should be. And we're close to a very important moment, which is crew access retract. So it's the arm retract, the arm that enables to walk in the gateway. Michael, you're back.
What does that mean? What is the explanation for this access arm retract?
Well, this is a big milestone. This is very important. It signifies that everything is go, that the spacecraft is ready for fueling, that all personnel have left the launch pad area, the blast danger area, and that the crew access arm will then swing back and go back into the fixed service structure, leaving the crew by itself inside the spacecraft and on top of the Falcon 9 rocket. And then the significance of that is that one thing that SpaceX has designed is abort capability. So as soon as the crew access arm is retracted, the flight crew will arm the abort system so that should there be any issue whatsoever with propellant loading, they can abort actually in the capsule and go up into a small parabola and then deploy parachutes and land. Not that anybody expects that to happen, but the crew access arm needs to retract in order to allow the Falcon 9 rocket to lift off without any impediments, without anything in the way.
And if there is no launch today for another reason, the crew can come back. I mean, it's not irreversible.
Absolutely. If the crew access arm needs to go back into position, it can go back immediately. It can be there within 30 seconds should the crew need to depart the capsule right away, or even if for some reason we just have a scrub today and we don't launch, then they can put the crew access arm back in place within 30 seconds and go through a very controlled detanking and then get the crew off.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, we'll see you later on, of course, in this program. Well, the goal of all this, we know, it is to go to the ISS, to the International Space Station. On ne va pas là-bas juste pour le plaisir de voler ou de regarder la Terre, mais c'est un véritable laboratoire, on l'a dit, on le sait, et j'attends maintenant sur le plateau mon invité prochain qui est le responsable
guest, who's the scientific manager in charge of the International Space Station, and he will be telling us what we're expecting from Thomas, more specifically. Thomas flew twice already, and so he is already experienced. He carried out a certain number of experiments during Proxima. He will carry them out again or improve them, and Kurt Costello should be able to tell us, here he is, because we are in the middle of nowhere. We are 5 kilometers away from the launch pad. So Kurt Costello.
We're a bit lost. I mean, it's a full night for us. I just said we don't go there just for the fun of flying and looking at the Earth. I mean, it's real science. It's a really fantastic scientific outpost.
Absolutely. Bonjour, Dominique. The crew will be flying not only for the experience of this wonderful ride on the SpaceX Dragon, but to conduct part of the 273 investigations we have assigned for this crew in this increment. Tomas will be doing science in human research, in human immunological functions, and also in tissue and cell growth. We'll be looking at what we call tissue chips. These little systems to grow cells, tissues, and biological organs in space, and he will be doing some of that research.
And this is a new type of research?
It is a new line of research that really helps us get at the questions as to how are functions changing in the human body when we go into a microgravity condition. And some of those cues can help us identify new pathways that can be used for drug development and also for treatment of diseases or ailments to people here on the Earth. Any experiment that he conducted in the previous mission for that one, or it just it's changing all the time? Because not for this one. These are new experiments going up. These are the second round of tissue chips investigations, so they're really looking at some of the functions of drugs and novel compounds. Okay, well, Kurt, thanks a lot, and of course we'll be looking at that. And CNES, the people in Toulouse which are taking care of those things on the French side, will be quite happy to follow that. I will really thank you. And we said the goal is the ISS, and one guy who went to the ISS and we just met recently is Andreas Mogensen. He's the first Danish in space, and Andreas Mogensen has been on the seat like Thomas, not on this launch pad, but in Soyuz, and so in Baikonur, and he will explain to us now what it is like to be on top of a rocket about to fly.
You never know that you're going until the countdown reaches 0 and the rocket is lit. Then you know for sure. Up until that point, there are numerous things that could delay your launch. For example, the weather. So you never know until the engine is actually lit and you feel the rocket moving.
And the impression is, at last, or whoo!
No, the impression. I mean, to begin with, again, astronauts are very, very focused. You know, you're not sitting back and relaxing. You're monitoring the system. You're following along with all the different engine parameters, the life support parameters, to make sure that everything is nominal, everything is as it's supposed to be. And it's typically not until you get to orbit, so 8 or 9 minutes later, when the engine has cut off and you're drifting in weightlessness, that you can kind of, you know, sigh and say, okay, we've made it, we're in orbit, we're on our way to the ISS.
Oui, et nous avons donc on parle de la Station Spatiale Internationale.
We talk about the ISS, of course, but we've also met Thomas Pesquet's physician for this mission, Adrianos Golemis, and he'll tell us about the stress undergone by astronauts during takeoff, but also throughout the mission.
Thomas va bien, il est prêt pour sa mission spatiale qui commence
aujourd'hui. He's ready for this mission starting today. We, on our side, we've carried out several medical tests just to check that the astronaut is ready on the medical and psychological side. So everything's fine despite COVID. We are ready for Mission Alpha. They've been selected to be capable to overcome stress, and with their training, you know, they are ready, and they can really focus on what they must do, and stress is not such an important factor as it would be for other people like you and me, you know, who would be in a similar situation. Now, of course, you must be very well prepared, and you need to have a very strong nature in order to be able to cope, you know, 6 months in space in a confined area. But as European astronauts say, you must always strive to improve, and they are not, you know, supermen from the beginning. No, this comes with training, and eventually that's how they can cope until the very end. So they've been confined voluntarily, and they cannot leave. No, they cannot go out. Well, sometimes they must go out for a spacewalk for operational reasons, but not, you know, just, you know, as we would do in our daily lives. Okay, so countdown is carrying on. Sophie?
Yes, there's a very important phase that is happening now, just happened. It's a Dragon spacecraft launch escape system. Armed. Tell us, what does it mean? It's safeguarding the system?
Is capable right now to eject the crew in case of a problem during the fueling. phase, which is going to start.
So the rocket-grade kerosene loading is starting now as we're talking.
Well, you're right. Well, there are two fuels that are responding to bring the... you have the refined kerosene and then liquid oxygen. They're combined, enabling us to get a chemical reaction which is going to bring the thrust, which is the principle of the rocket. And then the two stages, 1 and 2, are being fueled with kerosene, and they will also be fueled successively with the liquid oxygen.
But you were telling us that's a fill-and-go method, and that's really completely new.
Well, in some airlines, you go on board before having the filling the kerosene. But then in this particular case, it's the first time ever that a crew, a space crew, the principle of this Crew Dragon, the crew is being seated prior to filling the kerosene, 35 minutes only before the liftoff. This is really unusual, never heard of before.
So a small reminder, if the firing sequence is not nominal, then we know how to stop it, even a few seconds before going.
At the present moment in time, the rescue, if there's any anomaly, the crew could still eject. We may also bring the arm back, and then the arm would be used to leave. But then their ejection means is the capsule with its extremely powerful engines or thrusters that will be not activated, but only activated if need be.
What are the two technical phases after fill and go fueling? What are the two phases?
Well, once the reservoirs have been, the tank have been filled, and now there's an electric autonomy prior to liftoff, and at 1 minute it has its own autonomy for managing the countdown.
Okay, now it's time to discover. The pressure is mounting here, must say. So we're now going to discover Mission X, how to train as an astronaut, small video, and then train as an astronaut, that's the title. And this is how Thomas practiced sports.
Oui, très bien.
So you could see in terms of sports, you have to train a lot. Okay, so now the ISS is made out of different modules, as you can imagine, different parts, the very long corridors, places where you live, scientific and labs places. Different astronauts of different nationalities do work together, and you need to have somebody to manage everything so that everything is as smooth as possible, as Americans would say. So it is a logistic mission that is lots of work, and the man in charge is Simon Chalice. We're going to meet him now in duplex. He's increment manager at Columbus Center, is in chief of mission for ESA. Hello, Simon. Bonjour, Simon.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for allowing me to join this broadcast today. I'm very excited, like many of us today, for this fantastic launch today.
You share the increment with another manager who's Bertie Messenger. You wanted to tell a little bit about her, but tell us, how do you juggle it all?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. So, as you know, there are different control centers all over the world, at least 5 major control centers, and each control center has their own plan for how to do activities on board the space station with the crew and on the ground. And the key thing is how we integrate all of those separate plans together in the most efficient way, using the most efficient use of the resources, including the crew, and trying to avoid any potential conflicts with all those activities we're trying to do in parallel. So, for example, if you have Thomas working in Columbus, he may be asked to work a certain payload for us, but at the same time we have another US crew member also working in Columbus on a different payload, or using or sharing the same hardware, and we have to have a plan which avoids that they're directly in conflict with each other. And of course, the important thing is this plan is essentially changing all the time. It's very dynamic.
Tell us how ESA, of course, is in charge of operating the Columbus Science Module. What is its role precisely?
Okay, well, obviously the primary role is science. So we have a number of important facilities for ESA on board in Columbus. We have fluid science facilities, biology facilities, human physiology experiments. But we also host a number of important facilities from NASA. So it's really an international laboratory. And the other key thing you need to understand is it's not just the science, but it's also maintaining all the resources to support the science. So we have power systems, thermal systems, human life support systems, and we have to maintain those in order to do the science. So it's a very busy, dynamic environment.
And it's a big effort, team. Simon, just one last quick question, 30 minutes approximately before lunch. How do you feel?
Well, obviously the focus right now is on the 4 very brave astronauts sitting at the top of a very powerful rocket. But I think the important thing is also to understand that it's not just those astronauts that's part of this mission, but it's hundreds and hundreds of people all around the world have been preparing for weeks and weeks and weeks for this, and we're all very excited, and we're all counting down together because we want to get going with our respective science programs.
Thank you so much, Simon, for being with us this morning. Thank you. Nous sommes toujours en direct au centre.
So we are live from the control center of CNES in Toulouse. In less than half an hour now, the Alpha mission will be launched from Cape Canaveral with on board crew to Thomas Pesquet, 3 other astronauts, 2 Americans, and 1 Japanese. Welcome to everyone if you join us now. I'm going to open the second part of this mission to federate a French community around human flights. As you know, France has a great expertise in terms of human space flight, and it has its own experts here at the CNES and the CNES, managed by the experts, the Alpha French team that really rallies a whole French community. I'm going to welcome 3 guests. Jean-Luc Cartier, director of CNES. Thank you. It's a French company that is really helping CNES on this space flight activity. We have Mauro Ogelli, responsible for CNES, responsible for CNES. Welcome, and Sébastien Rouquette joining us again, engineer for human space flight.
Can you tell us a bit more about this team of France Alpha?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'd like to tell much more. For us, actually, there are so many things to say about the experiments. We are in the control center here, but we are conducting this here, but it's not our only activity. We are also developing part of these experiments for the Alpha mission. We have developed 12 experiments. That's twice what we had done for Proxima, so it shows the value of our work. It's part of the work which Thomas is going to do on board. On the ISS, we are also managing half of all the experiments that he's going to conduct, and this is a sign of trust on the part of ESA. And these 12 experiments which were developed were designed not by us only in the French team at CNES, but with the support of the industrial partners who are the experts in each one.
Next to you, Jean-Luc, your company COMAT is a partner of CNES, a member of France Alpha. You took part in the development of one of the French experiments, Télémac. Why is it important for COMAT to be part of this French team?
We are extremely happy to be associated with this particular event and to be able to develop experiments for science, to advance science within the ISS framework. Well, the context is highly challenging for us, and it enables us to showcase our work. So we have a return feedback which is very good, which is not so often on this national context. It's just like the Olympic Games for us, and technically speaking, this is a dream to be able to produce the equipment under such a tight schedule. And we were able to do things very quickly using technologies that are not very much used in the past.
We can do here things that we couldn't do otherwise.
Creativity is very important.
And then there's also
there's
some
a dream-like aspect as well, which is associated with it, and also there's a positive pressure associated with the human side, because we are developing a lot of equipment for satellites, and the manned flight domain is very special because it involves the safety of the crew, and it's more than a concern for us. It's an obsession, actually, to be able to guarantee at all stages in the design that we have the safety of the crew.
What would you say, Jean-Luc Cartier? You're part of a collective?
This is a state of fact because everybody knows each other. We are all working fully with the others transparently, and all the design phases are subjected to the peer criticisms and review, and we have the impression of doing a teamwork. It's not only an impression, actually, it's the reality, because we are working with our partners and CNES, of course, but also our subcontractors and colleagues. And
we are going to give the floor to Mauro. Mauro, could we see what is French, what is made in France on board the
Well, you're right. On board the station, we already have a number of experiments, about 10 of them on board. And Thomas is going to work on them from the Proxima mission. There are experiments that have been maintained and that will be used again, and which are supervised by CNES, like 3 experiments from Proxima, which is everywhere, which is an astronaut assistant which enables us to retrieve information and enabling the following up, and also enabling to have an exchange between the astronaut and the medical teams on the ground, and to make the follow-up, and to have some other experiments. There are questionnaires that are filled in with this application, and we also have the ultrasound machine. It's an experiment here, so the specialist on the ground can look at the ultrascan. So we have better images, and so we also have fluidics, which is mechanical fluids experiments to study whirlwinds or turbulence, and also the flutter in the wing, in the tanks, enabling us to have some more sophisticated models for the propellants in the propulsive models. And we have a cooperation experiment, a click for the science of materials. So there, where you have different phases. So these are ground experiments which are going to be studied by Thomas as well on the ISS. And the last thing I would like to say concerns the French cuisine of food. For the last years, on board we have some improved dishes. These are recipes to improve what they eat on board. We do that in cooperation with the French chef Ducasse and the ENAF company, which is in Brittany.
Thank you very much, Mauro. Thank you, gentlemen. We're gradually approaching the moment of lunch. I suggest we look at a picture of what the astronauts have done in the last few hours. That will bring back memories to you, Jean-François. We're going to see what they've been doing in the last few hours. Getting up early, I suppose?
Yes. And this is the mythic room, the suit-up room, where all the astronauts put their suits on, and they have one technician. Each astronaut has got his own technician looking after him for the suit, and it's this person for Thomas sits number 28. You recognize them with their numbers, and we test the spacesuit, because you cannot do that if you cannot put it on if it's not been inflated, and to make sure everything's okay. So they are equipped as if they were in the capsule 1 hour later. So at what time do they wake up?
What time do they get up in the morning?
Well, 6 hours before the takeoff and the liftoff. Yes. So this is getting up at 5 a.m. local time. Paris time. So we test the whole suit to look at the tightness and the connections, and for breathing as well, to speak, to make sure that everything's okay. They got up, they had a breakfast, they had a small medical check, and they tested the spacesuit. They keep it on. So we love these technicians because our safety depends on the proper functioning of the spacesuit and the expertise of these technicians.
He's sending kisses and clapping his hands. He's
these
on
are
good
the
form,
quarantine quarter, same lift. We say goodbye to our close relatives and family, a few members only. Well, it's only the spouse. There may be some colleagues or the escorts, so people that have been selected by the crew, who are the assistants, or they are called the escorts, supporting the family, the children.
That's the very last time that they see them. The doors are closing and they will be taken away.
Well, the pad is about 10 kilometers away.
What is happening? What is going on
in
their heads?
We are highly focused at that moment. We think of all the things that are going to take place. Just as if you were in an airline, you are looking for things coming. We are constantly, just like in any operational work, we are concentrating on what you are going to do, and you're thinking about in advance what the next step will be. And that's exactly what they are doing in the 10 minutes to come. And then this is thinking about the ISS, which they will join tomorrow, naturally, 24 hours after liftoff.
Of course, it was night time, but the sky was very clear. So they go up in twos, 2 by 2 in the lift.
Well, indeed. Well, first they have to we install the first 2 and then the next 2. First, the flight commander, Chain, who is the pilot.
Besides the Japanese, once they're up there, they're going to sign the NASA logo.
Okay, you might have to leave a mark before you leave, and you sign a poster. So the pilot, helicopter pilot from the army, and with his colleague. So they. That's Thomas.
What do technicians say to them? Do they wish them to have a happy flight?
This is the minimum we can do. What we say is Godspeed. It's Godspeed, a mixture of good luck and have a nice trip.
They are settling down in the capsule. Thomas is on the right at the back. They're in semi-sitting position, semi-lying. It's not very comfortable, is it?
Seated, almost seated actually, and once it is they are seated, they will be as if they were on a. They're going to face the sky as if they were lying supine, and they are on their back. And this is the case for all ascent when you have to go into the atmosphere.
There's a whole sequence of verification, of pressurization, that the door is locked and so on. We are going to talk about USOC now, this scientific program of the Alpha mission. The objective of this is to do science. We've understood this. I suggest we focus on these experiences that are going to be led by Thomas Pesquet and his crew. We are going to join Kirsten.
Hello, good morning. You are the ESA ISS Utilization Planning Team Leader, en français la chef d'équipe planification de l'utilisation de l'ISS pour l'ESA. Kirsten, tell us, what is exactly a USOC, if you can explain in a few words. Je ne sais pas si on a Kirsten. Alors, on va attendre quelques secondes. Est-ce qu'on a Kirsten? Yes. Je crois qu'on l'entend. Hi, Kirsten.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well.
So these USOCs are responsible on behalf of ESA for preparing and conducting experiment operations on the ISS to support scientists in acquiring data. And in order to do so, they really need to have a thorough understanding of the science requirements of the experiments themselves, as well as the hardware that will be used to conduct the experiments, so that they can then build the procedures for the astronauts to then install the experiment itself on orbit and conduct the activities. So first Firstly, they conduct tests on the ground with the hardware set up as close to the space environment simulation as possible in order to ensure that all the steps of the process are correct. They validate the procedures to ensure they yield the expected response. It's essentially a test run to be certain that everything will run smoothly. And then once we start conducting our operations on orbit, they can also send commands to our experiments. They receive all the data and telemetry, which then gets sent to the scientists for the further analysis on the ground of their own experiments.
Tell us, Kirsten, how were the alpha experiments chosen precisely?
So right now there's actually a series of ongoing experiments on the space station, especially the ones linked to material science, fluid physics, radiation, and environmental monitoring. So these experiments will continue throughout the Pesquet mission. But in addition, with the arrival of 2 SpaceX vehicles, we're bringing on board biological experiments called molecular muscle 2 and another one called biofilms. Then we even have human research experiments where the astronauts themselves are the subjects of the experiments. So studying grip and grasp, for example, which are looking at central nervous system, looking at time perception, and even muscle atrophy in space. And in addition to those, there's also a contribution of experiments coming from the French Space Agency, CNES itself.
Thank you so much, Kirsten, for being with us this morning. Thank you. Jean-François, je reviens vers vous parce qu'il y a une étape qui s'est produite à 11h33 que j'aimerais bien que vous nous expliquiez. C'est le second stage LOX loading begins.
Oui, c'est-à-dire que lorsque le premier étage a fini d'être rempli d'oxygène liquide, on commence à remplir le second. De toute façon, il faut que la fusée soit entièrement remplie de carburant pour décoller. Et le dernier remplissage, c'est l'oxygène liquide du deuxième étage.
Merci, Jean-François. Je me tourne vers Cécile, on est au CNES au CNES de Toulouse. Bonjour Cécile Thévenot, vous êtes ingénieure vol habité ici au CNES MEDES. Alors Kirsten, on l'a vu tout à l'heure, nous a expliqué qu'il y a plusieurs USOC européens. Ici, le CNES, c'est en quelque sorte l'USOC français, mais pas que, il fonctionne, on le rappelle, toute l'année, pas seulement quand Thomas est à bord de l'ISS. Ce CNES, il est reconnu pour son expertise dans le milieu spatial, c'est évidemment une grande fierté d'en faire partie. Expliquez-nous en quelques mots ce que vous faites précisément ici.
Alors, le CNES a 2 missions principales. On va dire qu'il y a une première mission qui est de préparer et développer des expériences, c'est-à-dire qu'on reçoit un protocole expérimental, donc préparé par des scientifiques ou une équipe de scientifiques. Et notre premier rôle, c'est de le mettre en œuvre. Donc pour cela, on peut avoir à développer du matériel parce qu'il n'existe pas. En tout cas, le matériel dont on a besoin n'existe pas. Auquel cas, on va faire appel typiquement à des industriels comme la Comat qui ont l'expérience, l'expertise, la connaissance de cet environnement si particulier qu'est le spatial. On peut aussi utiliser du matériel qui a été développé pas spécifiquement pour le spatial, mais qui existe, qui peut nécessiter quelques petits ajustements, on va dire. Voilà. Et ensuite, l'essentiel, c'est de le certifier, ce matériel. C'est-à-dire qu'il faut vraiment constituer un dossier de sécurité, donc on va devoir le tester. Ça peut être des tests thermiques, électromagnétiques, s'assurer que les matériaux qui sont utilisés qui constituent cet équipement sans danger, pour s'assurer encore une fois que cette utilisation va être sans danger pour la Station spatiale internationale et surtout pour ces équipements, les astronautes.
Dites-nous Cécile, comment vous êtes préparée pour cette mission ultra précisément? Est-ce que vous êtes servi, on l'imagine, de l'expérience de Proxima?
Alors bien évidemment, Proxima nous a... Fort de cette expérience, on a essayé d'anticiper un petit peu plus Alpha, c'est-à-dire qu'on a commencé, je dirais, il y a un peu plus de 3 ans à préparer cette mission en réfléchissant aux expériences qu'on pouvait réaliser, en partant sur un programme un peu plus ambitieux que celui qu'on avait construit pour Proxima. C'est pour ça aussi qu'on est passé de 7 à 12 expériences. Voilà. Et la partie importante aussi, le deuxième rôle qu'on joue ici, c'est on se retrouve dans cette salle de contrôle et on suit en temps réel l'exécution de l'expérience, on apporte un support en temps réel, on est en contact audio voire vidéo avec les astronautes et on peut répondre à leurs questions, voire apporter des solutions en cas de problème.
Est-ce qu'on peut peut-être détailler assez rapidement, mais détailler quelques-unes des expériences qui vont être menées à bord par
Oui, alors moi je peux vous parler de 2 expériences dont je m'occupe. La première c'est Dreams.
It is an experiment that really is there to study how the astronauts astronaut sleeps. And we have this band here that has been developed by a company called Dreams, and is going to measure the speed of the brain, the electroencephalogram of the brain, and a special neurolog specialized in the sleeping problems and patterns from CNES, from a hospital in Toulouse. And the other exercise is really to see how virtually the astronaut can evade, and we can boost his or her motricity. This application will allow him to, for example, go in bicycle around Paris. Thank you very much. We're going to speak about the experiments that are going to be carried out. One is called Pilot, and as an astronaut specialized in robotic arms, you could test it. You could a few images.
So Pilot is an experiment carried out several years where we try and implement, because we've understood that the brain worked differently in microgravity, and the idea is to assist astronauts during a certain number of chores when they use a robot arm when a cargo ship arrives.
This pilot experience is carried out by Thomas on the ground. He will repeat it at the beginning of the flight, and then we will see at the end of the flight how his brain adapted, and it will be done again later. And also when it comes back to Earth, we'll see how his brain reacts.
The partners of this project are, well, there's a main investor, which is the CNES, Paris Descartes University. We also have Tecnalia, based in Spain, an institute that helped us for tele-robotics and virtual assistance. And Oculus also was very enthusiastic, and they helped us in qualifying these headsets for space. And so this was a point where we proved that this headset would not be dangerous when used on board the station.
The equipment is all ready for them to carry out the experiments. When the pilot experiments are finished in a few weeks' time, the operators will be in the control room, will be directly connected to the space station, and we are there as experts of the experiments. So you put this on your head. So I'll let you put it on.
This is my very first time. So I wear this mask, and so I take, this is the arm, robot arm. Okay, so left translation and rotation to the right, just like in any space vessel cockpit. So you need to press here, maintain pressure. Extremely interesting. It's to be able to command 6 arms simultaneously. This is something you cannot do in the real world, real life. But as you practice, you can train your brain to new operations. And I'd really be interested to try this in microgravity or weightlessness and on Earth, because gravity has an action on our brain. Convinced about that. And so I'll be very interested in reading the results.
Jean-François, your specialty was robotics as an astronaut. Could you say a few words very quickly, because we are approaching the launch?
Well, yes, robots are indispensable to extend capacities of astronauts on board and avoid moonwalking or spacewalking. And so you have a European arm which will be taking off on a Russian rocket, and this will be a very automated arm, and so and this is a walking arm. So basically, this arm can walk to a remote place on the station to contribute to maintenance.
Jean-François, we are 7 minutes away from the launch. This is very important. 6 minutes. Falcon 9 is starting to chill the engines.
Well, yes. I mean, liquid oxygen we mentioned previously is at close to minus 100 degrees, and this is why you see this vapor. It's so strong that there's very high humidity in the Florida atmosphere, and so you see these fumes and. Before you turn on the engines, you must condition the valves and the combustion room.
We are going to join Dominique in Florida, in situ, 5 minutes away from the launch. Dominique from Cape Canaveral, can you hear me?
Well, yes. So we are here at the Kennedy Space Center. Everything's fine. By my side, somebody who experienced what Thomas experienced.
You've been sitting on the same position, not on the Falcon, but on the Soyuz and the shuttle in 2010 and 2007. What it is like? What is Thomas feeling now?
Thomas is probably feeling a lot of anticipation and a lot of excitement, a little bit of focus. He doesn't have necessarily all the data right in front of his face to look at, but he certainly is aware of what's going to be happening in the next 12 minutes after launch.
Is it scary?
No, it is not scary. This crew has been training sufficiently and quite ardently to get all the knowledge stuck in their head. So they're prepared for this mission. They're in no way scared.
When you were in that position, how do you miss it? But how did you feel at that moment?
Oh, I definitely miss it. You feel just exhilarated. You've put in so much work to get to that point, and it's culminating in a countdown. And once the engine's light, you're going to space, and so it's just a lot of anticipation, and you just can't wait to put into practice everything that you've trained to do.
So you miss it, and what else do you miss in space? You miss the excitement, but you also miss zero gravity. What is the?
The thing I miss the most is the view from the space station, looking back here at our beautiful planet and all the wonder that it brings, as well as the marvel of space, and then this miracle that we have called the International Space Station. Just looking at that vehicle itself from the windows is very inspiring.
Do we see the borders?
Absolutely not, no, and that's one reason why more people need to go there to see this view, because you really get a sense that we are all one and we're just inhabitants of a planet. We're neighbors.
Well, Tracy, thanks a lot and good luck. I know you want to watch a launch, so enjoy, and we will all be enjoying that together. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later. À vous, Sophie.
Merci beaucoup, Dominique. Voilà pour les mots de Tracy Clervoy.
Thank you. That was Tracy speaking to us. We are going to go silent in a few seconds. But what she missed a lot, Tracy, was the view from space.
I'm really happy that Tracy mentioned this, because we mentioned so much work and training, but there's this personal feeling, and all astronauts are so much moved by this overview effect. I mean, you see photographs in the film, but when you see with your own eyes life, where you can see the Earth over several thousands of kilometers in one piece, and when you see I mean, you just fall in love with the planet, and you really sometimes feel tears. Even if you are the toughest of astronauts, you want to cry, and this is something we would like everyone to experience. My fantasy as astronaut is to know the Earth by heart. I know astronauts, Russian astronauts. You show them any point on the planet, they know where it is. They know the Earth by heart.
This is less than 1 minute. We are going silent now, and I'll let you explain the last few phases.
Donc là, le lanceur est sur sa propre
génération électrique. The launcher is using its own power generation, and in a minute. So these are not leaks, this is just the humidity of the atmosphere condensing. And so we maintain the tanks full, and so this is a little bit of excess coming, leaking out.
FPS is armed, Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling.
Voilà.
Dragon is in countdown.
C'est Crew Dragon qui contrôle le compte à rebours.
This is countdown.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Copy, go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
C'est toujours un moment très émouvant quand vous n'avez rien d'autre à faire qu'assister au spectacle.
T-minus 15 seconds.
15 secondes.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That's it. And liftoff. Guys, continue endeavor and clear soon. Copy, 1 Alpha.
Vehicle station downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
La fusée atteint environ une fois la vitesse du son au bout d'1 minute.
The rocket is reaching the sound barrier within 1 minute.
Nominal power telemetry. Stage 1 throttle down.
On réduit légèrement la poussée, le temps de traverser des couches encore assez denses.
Crossing the dense layers when we are very rapid to avoid a pressure, too much pressure of the air on the fairing.
Là, on vient de passer le moment de résistance de l'air maximum.
Air resistance barrier.
1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
Là, ce sont des codes sur les zones de sauvegarde
on the rescue zones that are available if at all needed.
La science des fusées, la rocket science
is difficult to master. Extremely difficult to master this technology. You have such an amount of energy, gigawatts have to be harnessed in terms of mechanical power.
Là, on est déjà à 50 km.
There we are 50 kilometers away. Clear from the pad, 5 times the sound, the speed sound barrier.
Ce sont des chiffres
so these are figures that are astronomical, if I may say.
2 Alpha.
Copy, 2 Alpha. Separation confirmed. Acquisition of signal walls.
Séparation du premier étage.
So there's the undocking of the first stage.
Allumage du deuxième étage.
Second stage burn, just now on.
Et on voit sur l'image de gauche,
you can see on the left-hand picture, there's a camera view on the first stage, which will be collected again.
Vous imaginez la température.
So you can imagine the temperature within the nozzle of that particular rocket when you can see it as red as it is.
Ils sont loin au-dessus de
they're far above in the atmosphere, 150 kilometers away in altitude, clear from the pad.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
La vitesse va grimper jusqu'à
speed is going to
200
accelerate to
km,
200 kilometers, and then the trajectory is going to reach the speed, orbital speed, enabling all engines being shut to have a free-fall trajectory which is perpetual with the same curvature as the Earth. This is the satellisation principle.
It is more
So
comfortable for
they
the
have
crew.
3 to 4 Gs in the laying supine. They can bear that, stand that.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
Déjà à 10 000 km.
10,000 kilometers speed after 5 minutes. This is absolutely mind-boggling.
Signal bus.
Sur les anciens vaisseaux
On the
spatiaux,
former spaceships, we had passed most of the time spent on this particular phase compared to the time that it lasts on a mission, which is only a few minutes. Because thanks to automatization and the great autonomy of the spaceship, now the crew is no longer needed for training so much on this particular phase as in the previous generations of spaceships.
Il y a encore quelques étapes critiques à passer.
There's a few critical stages left.
Well, yes.
La propulsion du deuxième étage.
Second stage propulsion has got to reach its turn and complete its phase.
C'est la première fois dans notre
This is the first time in our existence that the destination is not a physical point. We have to reach a point which is virtual in space,
à la bonne vitesse,
at the
dans la
right
bonne direction.
speed, in the right
Les
direction.
moteurs s'éteignent et on est
So
tranquille.
and then
en
the
orbite.
engines are
Parce que
turned
les
off and
calculs
we
ont
are
été bien
happy.
faits.
Because
Because the calculations were right.
Voilà, on reste autour de 200
we are
km là.
at 200
Donc la vitesse qui
kilometers
augmente, elle
per
augmente
hour. The
horizontalement.
speed is horizontally increasing now.
Il reste encore 2 minutes
There are
de
still
propulsion
2 minutes
du
with the
deuxième étage.
propulsion for the second stage to go.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Copy, nominal trajectory.
C'est très
So
réconfortant
this is
pour
very,
l'équipage de
very
savoir qu'à tout
reassuring for the
moment,
crew to know
ils ont
that
cette
at any
capacité
moment
d'éjection
they have
en
this
cas d'anomalie.
ejection capability in case of an
Ce
anomaly.
n'était pas le cas dans
This was not the
avec
case
la navette
before with the
Mais c'était le
American
cas avec les
shuttle,
missions
but it
Apollo,
was
Gemini
true
et
with
les
the
missions Soyuz.
Gemini and Soyuz missions, but not with the shuttle.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Le premier étage
So the
sera allumé
first
sur
stage
moteur
has
central,
just been
se posant en
reignited.
douceur.
The center core has just been reignited for a
Non,
soft
c'était peut-être
landing.
le premier.
Or maybe that was the first burn, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. First burn, yes.
Oui, il allume
Well,
son moteur à deux
igniting
reprises.
there are two bursts to have an intact, complete
Ok, l'image merveilleuse.
retrieval.
The picture
So-
is beautiful on the left.
Très belle image.
Beautiful
Bon,
picture.
là, ils ont décollé de
So
nuit.
they have
Et même quand vous
they
décollez en plein jour,
lifted off during the night, but even
bout de
during the
minutes, le
day,
ciel
after
est
2
noir
minutes, you
blanc.
have a black as ink, jet black
avec le
sky
soleil éblouissant.
with the dazzling sun as well.
Voilà, l'altitude reste toujours
So
la
the
même, mais la
altitude,
vitesse,
the flight
augmente.
altitude is the same, but the velocity is
Autour de
increasing
entre
there
3
at
et
between 3
3G et demi d'accélération.
G, 3.5 G at the moment.
Voilà, ce qu'on entend, c'est toujours
So
ces
what
zones
you hear,
disponibles.
these are these available
de sauvegarde
zones
si
in
nécessaire.
case of rescue.
Qu'est-ce qu'on voit précisément sur l'image de gauche?
What can we see on the left picture?
C'est le premier
Now,
étage.
this is the first
C'est
stage.
le retour du
This
premier étage
image.
sur Terre.
In case for the return to Earth, to the ground.
Voilà, extinction du deuxième étage.
So they've just cut off the second stage.
Voilà, ils ont
So
désarmé
they have disarmed, they've
le système
unharmed
d'éjection
the
parce qu'ils n'en ont
ejection
pas besoin. Ils sont
system
en orbite.
because they're no longer needed. They're in orbit.
Là, on respire un peu mieux.
Can we breathe now?
Well, the critical phase has just been behind us. It's still magnificent because this is a control of human intelligence, of males and females, of hundreds of them who have been controlling these technologies and techniques. This is just amazing. So, shall we have the soft landing image of the first stage on the ground? You see this contrast between the colored blue Earth and the blackness of cosmos. And in about 10 minutes, they'll be over our heads. In 20 minutes, they'll be over Europe.
We'll just say hello to them.
It goes so quickly. So you have a few minutes between the insertion into orbit, and then this is the last critical stage. The Crew Dragon is still attached to the second stage. And they will be detaching in about 1 minute and a half.
Do we know where the first stage is
so
going to
yes,
land?
on a boat, on a platform, which is located in the sea, in advance.
There we can
So
see
they are in weightlessness now. You can see
weightlessness. Thomas is on the left.
and this is for the rest of their mission. They'll be in that situation.
Ils ont les pieds calés dans des... Ouais, d'accord.
They got their feet harnessed.
Well, they have their feet are attached, particularly during the acceleration phase.
The strong
that's finished. Now they're in weightlessness for about 6 months.
Weightlessness now for 6 months. That's it. We can see Thomas.
Encore une trentaine de secondes.
30 seconds to go. Still.
Se détend les doigts.
Oui, les bras flottent.
Well, you have floating arms.
We can see his arms floating.
Il y a quelques minutes, ils pesaient 3 fois leur poids.
Whereas a few minutes ago, they were weighing 3 times their body weight on their chest.
Le premier paramètre que l'on regarde.
Now, the first parameter we look at when the first stage is shut off is the velocity which has been reached. Is it going to maintain us in orbit, or is it degraded because the engines had to stop too early or were not strong enough, and then we know they will be coming back to Earth in the coming minutes. So there we have the Crew Dragon, which is autonomous now. It has been fully separated
en toute sécurité.
in all safety,
ils vont dériver pendant environ
and they will
23
drift
heures
for about 3
en ajustant l'orbite pour rejoindre l'ISS.
adjusting their directions.
Flying our first flight-proven crewed Falcon 9. See you inside, Crew 2.
See you inside ISS.
Thank you very much.
Donc, rendez-vous à l'intérieur de l'ISS.
And we'll send our regards to Crew 1 when we get there. Thanks.
C'est magnifique.
Il est content, Thomas.
Magnificent.
Thomas is happy. Look at him.
Alors, est-ce qu'ils vont se tenir les mains
Il nous fait un cœur.
Oui.
Il est pour moi, ce cœur, je pense. Hein.
He's sending us a heart.
Pour nous tous.
Il est pour nous tous, évidemment. Est-ce qu'ils vont se prendre les mains comme...
Are they going to
En fait, ils l'ont peut-être fait avant qu'on le voit, parce que c'est dès l'arrêt des moteurs.
Maybe they've done it before the engine cut off.
Alors on imagine grand soulagement là. Hein,
it's a great relief on the other side of the Atlantic.
Ça va, Jean-François, comment vous l'avez vécu ce moment?
Jean-François, how do you feel?
What do you feel about it?
À la fois comme eux, mais
It's
comme un spectateur ému.
I'm very moved as a spectator because I know this is and there's a whole piece of work before that and after that, and there's this particular point through which you have to go for a few minutes, which is highly critical. So we have the
CEO of ESA
first statement by the president.
Statement.
Yes, these are very emotional moments. It's incredible to see these astronauts, Thomas, Shane, Megan, Akihiko now flying to the space station. I mean, this is just fantastic. And as Director General of ESA, I'm very happy to see Thomas now flying to the ISS. All of us in ESA, everyone is very proud, very excited to see this happening. This is just it's just incredible. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, NASA in particular, but also the other partners of the International Space Station for an excellent cooperation which we have and which make this flight possible. SpaceX has done an incredible job in order to secure this flight also for our astronaut Thomas Pesquet. Thomas Pesquet will be the commander on the space station at the last month of his stay. He will then be joined by another ESA astronaut, Matthias Maurer, who will be there for about 6 months. And afterwards, we will have yet another ESA astronaut, Samantha Cristoforetti, joining Matthias in the space station. So we have 3 astronauts in a row that will be at the space station. And this is quite unique and quite special for us at ESA. But I would also like to really thank everyone involved, because this has been such a tremendous effort at NASA, at ESA, at SpaceX, and all the partners to make this possible. Because the ISS is really a testbed of many experiments of many kinds where we are all working together for material sciences, for biology, for medicine, and many aspects. So this is really exciting. We are launching a lot of experiments there. Thomas will conduct more than 100 experiments himself. We are doing this in close cooperation with our partners. And here I really would like to mention the excellent cooperation we have with the CNES. And Philippe Baptiste, the new president of CNES, is with us. We have defined some experiments jointly together. And I would like to hand over to Philippe for his statement. But before I do that, allow me to remind everyone that ESA has a call for astronauts open. So everyone who is watching, please get excited, realize your dream, apply to the astronaut jobs of this open call, which is open until the 28th of May. So now I hand over to Philippe. Thank you from my side. Thank you from ESA ESRIN, and over to CNES in Paris.
Merci beaucoup Joseph. Après ces très belles minutes, je voudrais simplement souhaiter une très belle fin de voyage. Il y a encore une petite journée de voyage devant lui, Thomas et ses 3 collègues. Une très belle fin de voyage, une très belle mission à Thomas.
And I believe that he incarnates a certain number of values, efficiency, precision, and I would like to thank him, and I'm sure he's a source of inspiration for all of us. This dream is the dream of all of us, overcoming our condition, and Thomas and his 3 colleagues have proven this true and possible. But there is also a big challenge, which is the Earth and climate. And the forecasts for the results of the space industry, direct impact and indirect impact of this industry is huge. And the way we work today depends a lot on our satellites, for instance, and in the future it will be even more the case, even more important. Data explosion is such that this sector is important for our future, and the GAFAs know this is the case. So many companies are investing in this sector, and Europe is also working on this, and I would like Europe to catch up when necessary. So without Thomas and his colleagues in the ISS and the major agencies and countries, and now thanks to the private sector, this dream, Mars, would only be a dream. But it is not only a dream anymore, it is more than a dream, because if the moon is at 400,000 kilometers, Mars is at 55 million kilometers, and so the way is not quite the same. It's just a couple of days to reach the moon, but it's several years to reach Mars, and science and technology must make a lot of progress. But beyond this progress, there's also the human challenges that must be overcome for this type of a trip. There are also a couple of budget issues, of course, that we need to overcome if we want to reach Mars. But Now, I also wanted to finish with a call for candidates to become astronauts, and the coordination is excellent, but we didn't coordinate our conclusion, and therefore I will repeat what Joseph just said. Yes, applicants are most welcome. You have a couple of months to apply to become the next astronauts, and I will be delighted to be able to pass on the documents, resumes to the general manager of ESA.
Voilà pour l'intervention de Philippe Baptiste, le président directeur général du CNES, qui a passé un message. Donc voilà, tous les candidats, il est encore temps pour candidater et vivre le rêve de Thomas Pesquet. Oh, on est soulagé, on respire mieux. On va passer la parole, on va retrouver tout de suite Dominique Detain en Floride, qui doit être bien soulagé aussi, Dominique. C'est à vous.
In Florida, you must be relieved too.
Oh, well, it was just amazing. I mean, this is not my first launch, but it's every time is just extraordinary. Mike Curry with me.
What is your feeling? Because it's like me, you've been seeing plenty of launches, and it's never the same and always something fantastic.
It's nice to be back, Dominique. It was a beautiful launch, and you're right, it never gets old. It is always an amazing experience, and for those who have the lifetime opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity to be in person, you not only see it, but you feel it and you hear it, and to know that everything went so well with the years of planning in advance and the entire countdown and all the people across the country and the world involved. It's just a very proud moment, and to light up the early morning sky in Florida like that is just an amazing feeling.
And one thing, I mean, it's been 11 years since I've not seen a man being launched from here. So, well, you launched last year, and it's something also which is great to be back in KSC and fly from there.
Yeah, it's great. It's we're now in a tempo, a pace where we're now expecting to launch astronauts and our international partners from ESA and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency to the International Space Station on a frequent basis, a regular basis, and it's nice to get back into an operational tempo like this where we are able to plan for a launch and execute the launch. And now we have 4 astronauts going to the International Space Station that will join 7 other humans on the space station for a period of time, making 11 people working in space. It's just amazing.
Let's go back to Dragon Crew 2. So what's going on now for them? It's relaxing, and they're just on their way to any operation, any specific?
Well, it's the beginning of the of a 23-hour rendezvous sequence. From the moment of launch, it's about 23 hours and 20 minutes until they expect to dock with the International Space Station tomorrow a little after 5 a.m. Eastern Time. And during that time, there will be a number of phasing burns and boost burns. The most recent milestone was that the nose cone opened on the Dragon spacecraft, which opened up some of the Dragon thrusters that are needed in order to continue the rendezvous. They will be conducting a phasing burn here a little bit that will put them on the correct path in the exact sequence and orbit as the International Space Station. And being in a lower orbit than the space station, they are able to then use that to boost them up to a higher orbit together with the burns from the Super Draco and the Draco engines on the Dragon spacecraft. So probably about 10 different burns between now and the time of docking, but everything is looking great. They're right on the timeline.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Mike. It was a pleasure to have you next to us with your expertise. And of course, we will be following the docking tomorrow. And then we will follow, of course, all this mission. And I'm sure we will back and see you for the Matthias Maurer, etc., the other launches that we have planned here. Thank you here. Sophie, à vous, and we'll meet later on with some other guests.
Merci effectivement, Dominique. Voilà,
Thank you, Dominique. Launching went well. That was a breathtaking spectacle. The crew is safe in this capsule and they should reach the ISS in 24 hours. I suggest we turn a page now. We're going to talk about manned flights. What is the future for manned flight? David Parker is director at ESA. Good morning, David. I suppose you are happy to be off the ground.
It's very happy feeling right now. Every launch brings those emotions back. The power and majesty of a liftoff and the excitement of Tomo returning to flight. This is going to be a particularly exciting mission. 6 months aboard the space station, a lot of very important science and technology for back on Earth. And you know, it's a very exciting day because exactly 20 years ago, the first ESA astronaut went aboard the space station, Roberto Guidoni. So it's a historic moment for us and great to be back in the Cape for launching our astronauts to the space station.
David, tell us, you've launched a new selection process to select the next batch of astronauts. Tell us why.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the first thing to say is our current batch of astronauts, of which Thomas is one, we're going to fly all of them on at least a second mission to the International Space Station. But we're entering a new era of space exploration. You know, we have 3 seats to fly our astronauts on Orion into deep space towards the moon. And we're going to carry on working aboard the space station for the rest of this decade. And so we need to refresh the group of astronauts we have. And maybe the new generation, maybe the ones that eventually set foot on the moon, and even looking forward to that huge leap, eventually human exploration of Mars. That's our Horizon goal for exploration program.
David, tell us who can apply. What kind of people are you looking for?
Well, everybody with the right experience and knowledge, and if you go onto our website, you'll find out what that is. But we're particularly excited to have the kind of people who can be part of a team. We need people to work as part of a huge team in space, but back here on the ground. Particularly keen to see more women applying to this astronaut call. We're going to select 4 to 6 astronauts in the core astronaut team. But something new, we're going to have a reserve group of astronauts, maybe up to another 20, that will be able to take missions as they come along into the future. And the final thing that's really new this time is we've taken the decision to see whether it's possible to undertake a mission to the International Space Station by somebody with a physical disability. And this is a world first that ESA is trying to do. It's a really exciting step to open a door for people who haven't been able to participate in human spaceflight before now.
It's beautiful, of course. Stay with us, David. We would like to see now how Thomas approached this selection when he applied to become an astronaut. On va regarder ça en images tout de suite et on revient avec David après.
Let's look at this in images.
It's not easy. I mean, it's hard. Sometimes it's painful to be bad at things because you're trying, so you cannot be good right from the beginning. You have to struggle and get better. Because nobody succeeds every single time. It just doesn't exist. But it's the confidence that you can try, and you shouldn't forbid yourself from trying. I've kind of always wanted to be an astronaut, but in a way I never thought that was something realistic. So I was interested, but just the same as kids are interested in sports and they'd like to be the soccer, football world champ because it looks cool. But you don't really see a way for you to do this. I mean, it looks like it's for some special kind of people that live on TV. I knew nothing about it, but I studied and then I tried everything. I tried, skydiving. I tried to go live abroad. I tried to learn new sports, speak languages, apply for jobs, apply for some qualifications, everything. It's like being on a trail, and suddenly there's two different ways and a branch. So which one are you going to take? And then there'll be another one, and another one, and another one. I think what's important is I didn't forbid myself. to apply to the selection, to try and become a pilot, even though no one around me was a pilot. So I think pretty much my only skill growing up was the confidence that I was going to apply to everything, and I was going to try my best, and it doesn't matter if I succeed or not, I was still going to keep trying. And I think with this attitude in life, you do good things. It doesn't matter what you choose to do, but just keep pursuing it and you'll be fine.
Quel merveilleux message.
What a
Croire
wonderful
en la vie, la
message.
confiance en
Believe
soi.
in life,
Jean-François, un petit aparté.
self-confidence. Jean-François, you're part of the people who selected Thomas. You saw potential immediately and his great humbleness. Yes.
Yes, it's very important when you interview individually people. It's very important to see that in his guts, you know, this is really what he wants to do, and this desire to contribute to something bigger, the desire to be an ambassador, because we talked about the role of astronauts. They are machine operators, but they are ambassadors, and they must try and make, you know, this universe more available to others.
Let's meet.
I have one last question. Thank you for still being with us. Tell us, David, how does Thomas' mission fit into your overall plans for space exploration?
Thank you. Well, Thomas' mission is part of a sequence that is taking us on a journey that will one day end up with boots on Mars, the red planet. But right now, Mars is only a destination for our robots. So beyond the space station, one of the things we're doing is preparing for the return to the moon, or going forward to the moon to explore it properly this time. So Europe is building the power and propulsion for Orion, the new deep space craft that will take humans to the moon, and we have 3 seats aboard that already planned. Where will the astronauts go? The first place is our new spaceport, or small space station around the moon, the Lunar Gateway. And Europe is building 2 out of the 4 elements of that exciting new program. And so our astronauts will go there, and then we will reach down to the surface of the moon to take our astronauts there to explore our 8th continent properly this time. And so we'll learn then on the moon how to take that much bigger leap eventually to the surface of Mars.
Well, thank you so much, David, for being with us. Thank you for these very interesting and very brilliant insights. Have a great day. Thank you.
One thing is for sure, we're going to go to a different chapter of our direct life. France is really pioneer in terms of human space flights. The collaboration, Franco-Soviet collaboration in the 80s, allowed Jean-Luc Chrétien to join the Salute station. Today, the international objective, clearly shown, is to take men to Mars and previously, and to the moon previously. We have what is a French contribution? We have 2 guests to speak about this topic. François Joncteur-Morosier, who is Chief Deputy of Science Operations and Exploration of CNES, and Jean Bouvac, who is Head of Exploration Program for Human Space Flights at CNES. Was France ready for this
Thank you, Sophie. We are very much ready for the future. We have the demonstration today, because with Jean-François' demonstration, you can see all the experience acquired, and with Thomas' flight, which is bringing new experience and new insights and new technologies. These are 2 evident proofs. Now, beyond that, we are participating to the ESA program with 3 destinations like ISS in low orbit, but also the moon, on which we are preparing, as Mr. Parker said. We are going to have a small station, Lunar Gateway, and also we want to reach the surface of the moon, and then the Grail, the Holy Grail, would be to go on top of Mars, to have a crewed flight to Mars. That may take place within a few years. It's quite probable, actually. While we are, as French, we are participating in all these endeavors, and we have direct cooperations with all the space agencies in the world that are interested in exploration and manned flights. The most important example was the latest mission, where instruments were manufactured in France, at the very cutting edge of technology.
Second question for you, Jean-François, Dr. Morosier. How do you concretely build this future?
In practice, we have an approach which is based on open innovation by inviting industry and scientific experts to define and consolidate all the roadmaps on these various topics to enable the future missions that are beyond the space technologies. We have the habitat or the health or agronomy or digital aspects to be taken into account for these future missions. So we have to prepare the French crew to contribute to exploration, but also with topics that could have synergies for very interesting applications on these topics. And then finally, this French team is part of a collective European team, and as you said, and we are working in cooperation with the ESA, and we are building these roadmaps, and we want to have a complementary approach with all the European partners for this particular adventure.
Last question to Jean-Jacques. Two big industrial players, French, are on board of these Mars and lunar missions, ADS and TS. Can you please develop?
Well, you're right. The two major contractors, and behind these main contractors you have all the industry and a whole complex of to develop the industries, and we have innovative ideas, and you have Thales, which is going to build the modules for the future gateway, lunar gateway, and Airbus will also be involved with the vehicle which is going to retrieve these Mars samples within the framework of the Mars return mission in order to retrieve them on Earth. And this will be part of our contribution to understand better the Mars and to have a better knowledge prior to sending people on Mars.
Thank you to both of you. That's a great transition, perfect transition to discover our next short film, educational film on focus on the Moon Camp Challenge in images.
Alors, on me dit dans l'oreillette qu'on va rejoindre tout de suite Dominique Detain, qui a un invité au Kennedy Space Center,
c'est ça? Is that correct?
Dominique, est-ce que vous m'entendez? Si c'est le cas, c'est à vous.
Oui, Sophie,
Yes,
ici au centre spatial Kennedy. Eh bien, moi, je vous entends très bien. Moi, je vous entends très bien, Sophie. Ici, eh bien, écoutez, on se relaxe, de même que les astronautes actuellement dans leur capsule, bien sûr. Alors, j'ai près de moi quelqu'un de très intéressant, parce que lui, les capsules, il ne connaît pas, mais il connaît les bateaux et sur des longues distances. C'est Tanguy Delamotte. Alors, vous avez été skipper de Initiative Peur, vous avez
for the Heart Initiative, you crossed the Atlantic, you had the various championships trophies, and what have you felt when you saw this particular liftoff? Oh, very amazing. These are sensations that I had felt when you have your boat, when you can see the light, which is dazzling during the night. It's almost daybreak, and then you have all these vibrations, and you can see that the Earth is trembling, and it really sends shivers down my spine. Well, with the Vendée Globe contest, I'm sure you know all this. Well, you're right, but we are leaving for 3 months with a lot of unexpected things, but Thomas is leaving for 6 months. Everything has been planned and prepared. But for one astronaut, you have 1,000 people working behind him with NASA, SpaceX, etc. But we are not in the same conditions at all, but we have the same wiring, so to speak, to be in that zone of exploring and of looking for the unknown and to go beyond oneself. And I think that our contest, on our boat contest, can be a parallel to what Thomas is doing, but of course it's a little bit different as well. So these are long duration missions and you have a goal, because you know that you have to arrive, even if you break your mast, for example. But then it's confinement as well. Yes, in our boat, in a contest, we can go outside, of course. Something you cannot do. We can cross over if you want to. We have the external space, but we are living within a few meters. And Thomas is going to stay in that space station for a while, and it's going to be quite tight. But confinement and being distant, we live the same thing, because we are feeling solitude. We know that at the back of our mind that when Thomas was in space, for us, he would have been the closest man when I was racing on my boat, because I was 1,000 kilometers away from the ground. And so we are far, and we know that, and we live at solitude more than Thomas in space. But these are mental and psychological traits that are a little bit different. But the trip is short, but then he's got a long stay for 6 months on which he's got plenty of work to do, and which has been prepared. But we are contesting. It's not exactly in the same play. And there's the extreme environment, of course, but we are, both of us, in vehicles that are protecting us and embarking us onto something we are just passing through, and we have to rely on the technical aspects. And when we crossed the Atlantic, I had to bring the boat back to the coast, and with the Kerr initiative, and there were a lot of parallels between his life and my life, and his dream to go back into space at the time, and it's incredible to be here today, and for his particular start. And at the race, when you start, you have friends that come, you cannot share with them, you have a little bit of time, but you have left, and they have more time than we have. And so he left 40 minutes ago, and he's already far from the Earth, and it's incredible, and to experience what he... And when you see all the oceans, when you experience this vertical vertigo, it's quite... well, we can see the Earth, which is round, and the horizon when we're on a boat, and these are mind-boggling moments, but it's quite monotonous, because we cannot see only see the waves, but we can see the color which is changing, and our mood is changing as well according to our sleep or our technical issues. But it's never... we always want to go back, and as Thomas said, over these 3 years of preparation, and we did our journey together, so to speak, and it was great to do this together, and to live, to experience such a manned flight. Lift off. We know that there is Thomas in the rocket. It's amazing. Well, thank you, Tanguy, for sharing your views with us and your emotions with us. Thomas is over there in the space now, and is going to join his friends in his new apartment. We'll be continuing the adventure. We'll be following the docking phase, which will take place at about the same time as today. And so, as far as I'm concerned, I just would like to say bye-bye, and I was so glad to participate with you on this extremely beautiful journey, and see you soon.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you very much, because you made us leave this event really close to the...
Well, actually, we're always linked. We're never alone, and we are surrounded with colleagues.
We carry on now talking about experiments. We're getting to the end of our program, but I'd like to talk about an experiment that CNES had carried out during the first mission for Thomas in 2016. This mission, Proxima, it was such a real success that it became a real tool imported for the ISS. Its name is ECHO, and it allowed an expert to remotely operate an ultrasound scan from the Earth on an astronaut in space. Tell me if I'm wrong. I have two guests, Didier Chaput, engineer for human space flights at CNES. You helped conceive ECHO, and Professor Philippe Barbet, who is a doctor, specialist in ultrasound, and you're the main, you're the person at the outset of this project.
Why was it important to operate from the ground, and how does it work?
Because the ultrasounds, the difficulty we have is that we have to find the right cross-section of the longitudinal transverse cross-section, which is exactly that which the physician needs. And if you have someone at a distance who's going to do that 5 kilometers away, and if you ask that person with a probe to do a 90 degrees, it will be able to do it. But 2 or 3 degrees on the right or on the left, it's absolutely impossible to repeat this. So the role of the astronaut is to locate the probe close to the organ, and then from here, from CNES, we will refine the rotation of the probe to see exactly the organ as we want it to see. And we can activate the ultrasound machine with this keyboard here, and this is something that the astronaut hasn't got to do, because when we can do it, he has not to press that button, he has not to look for that on the keyboard, because he just has to maintain the probe, and we will handle everything else. And we save time, we get more accuracy, and more scientific data and medical data is obtained as a result.
Could you explain the technique has evolved?
Well, the technique has evolved in terms of the equipment which was on board the station, and so we have to update the software according to the needs of the scientists, and we are also upgrading new probes that will be used for the long-duration program missions in which we are involved, and we are also working on the future and on the lunar missions, because CNES is involved in a working group to define the ultrasound machine to be used during this particular lunar mission. So this machine will be enable us to teleoperate, so we'll be using the technology used for this particular case, and the more we distant from the Earth, the less it will be possible to use it. So we'll have to have more intelligence in these systems, and we have to miniaturize them as well. As you can see here, this is one of the candidates for the lunar missions, and we tried to bring some intelligence into this equipment by using artificial intelligence and by taking the expertise of Philippe and bringing it into the equipment as well.
One last question. Are there going to be applications that will be possible on the Earth, and which are they?
Well, applications on the Earth, there are plenty of areas in the world where you have patients and physicians who have to take the appointments for the ultrasound scan. But a few years ago, we tried to install the twin of this particular equipment in a health institute in Indre-et-Loire department, and the patients coming to the physicians and the GPs had their scan that had been obtained by the GPs, and they were holding the probe, and I was manipulating it from a distance, as we are doing with the ISS mission. It was very successful, but unfortunately it takes time for the physician to do that, and the private world of medicine is not making money, and so there's no
Thank
return
you,
on investment.
Gentlemen, for talking about this eco-experiment. It was precisely 11:49 in Paris when Crew Dragon took off from Cape Canaveral, carrying on board the crew of the Alpha mission, including Thomas Pesquet. A breathtaking launch that we have experienced live here in direct, and I suggest we relive this in image.
2, 1. Copy, 1 Alpha.
Vehicle pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Jean-François, vous me dites, on dirait un soleil.
Oui, vu de loin, c'est un point très brillant et sur le fond noir de la nuit.
Yes, it's very shiny, it looks like the sun. Yeah, despite the mask I saw, I read the emotions.
That was a historic moment, a breathtaking moment, as the Americans say. I would like to thank all the people who worked on this broadcast, the CNES and ESA teams, all contributors, technicians on this platform, without whom whom nothing would have been possible. Thank you to Liliane, Marie, Benedict and Guy, the interpreters. Thank you, Jean-François, for accompanying me. A great bravo to you all. We quivered with much emotion here in the CNES in Toulouse. It was a great pride to take part in the launching of the Alpha mission. Obviously, our warmest thoughts go to the 4 astronauts on board Crew Dragon. We will see them again in 24 hours' time for the berthing to the International Space Station. Rendezvous, let us meet tomorrow again, same place, same time, to experience again this great moment which will be charged with a lot of emotion.
Yes, it's another critical phase. Each time a vehicle meets another vehicle or another something else, it's like landing for an aircraft. It's a critical phase. And so you need to be at the right speed, right alignment for this docking to take place correctly, and this is critical, and
we will experience this live as well tomorrow. Thank you all. Thank you for continuing to dream while contemplating the stars with us. So we will leave you now with a compilation of the projects for young people. Rendezvous on the internet to know more about it. Have a good day. Ciao.